LinkedIn presents.
I'm Rufus Griscom, and this is The Next Big Idea. Today, everybody's talking about AI. How can you actually harness it to be better at, well, everything? Has AI had much of an impact on your life? It started for me as a curiosity. What exactly is a sonic boom?
It's the sudden bang produced when an object outruns its own sound waves, compressing air into a single explosive pulse of sound.
How probable is it that democracy will actually collapse in the US in the next decade?
Most political scientists peg it around 5%. Uncomfortably high, but not Vegas odds-on.
Could I buy a charming apartment in Lisbon for less than $100,000?
Only if charming includes 28 square meters, 3 flights of stairs, and a bathroom the size of a phone booth.
I then started giving it more sensitive questions. Here's 3 years of my journal entries. Am I making progress? What am I doing wrong?
You are a high bandwidth polymath, making incremental progress towards several admirable goals.
No. I need tough love. I'd like to be verbally spanked.
You listen to me, Rufus, and you listen good. It's time to fire the cultivator of ideas and hire the finisher. Choose 2 priorities. Put every other dream in a someday document and lock it for 90 days.
Here's a 25-minute voice memo about our family finances. This is open kimono. Please give me specific recommendations of what actions I should take immediately, and do it in the tone of Bobby Knight.
Quit hot dogging and cash out 20% of your equities now. Bench your margin balance. Let compounding work for you, not against you.
You've listened to the Next Big Idea Club's last dozen strategy meetings and my recent board call, and you have access to all the public information about the company. What's the single most promising opportunity that we should act on this week?
Launch a premium Next Big Idea Plus podcast membership with bonus episodes and extra access, offered as both extra value and a way to support the mission. The tagline could be, enjoy a richer listening experience and help us keep the show going.
I have begun to rely on AI every day, particularly GPT Deep Research and Google's Notebook LM. And I've done so more and more over time. Building companies is difficult. Being a devoted, uxorious spouse and a patient, attentive parent, that's difficult too. I've found in recent months that I'm incrementally better at these objectives with help from AI. I've shared my own journey over the years with a collection of close friends, and one of them is Andy Sack. Andy is a wise, big-hearted serial entrepreneur and venture capitalist who's gone on to advise Satya Nadella at Microsoft. He recently teamed up with Adam Brotman. Adam was the first ever chief digital officer at Starbucks, where he led the development of the coffee giant's mobile app. He later served as co-CEO of J.Crew and co-founded Brightloom to bring Starbucks-style ordering to other restaurants. Together, Andy and Adam are the founders of Forum 3, where they advise companies on how to embrace the AI revolution. And they're with us today because they've written a new book published this week called AI First. Amazon CEO Andy Jassy calls it a practical roadmap for any business leader looking to harness the transformative potential of AI. I'd go a step further. This book isn't just for business leaders, it's for anyone who wants to leverage AI to be more creative, productive, and capable. That's what this episode is all about. Andy, Adam, and I are going to pull back the curtain on how we're actually using AI, not just the basic stuff, but the ways it's genuinely transforming how we work, how we think, even how we connect with the people we love. Because here's their thesis. AI is more than a productivity hack. It's an Iron Man suit. It can turn you into a version of yourself that is faster, smarter, and more talented than you thought possible. But only if you learn to wear it right. Only if you stop treating it like a fancy search engine and start treating it like the superpower it actually is.
Hi, I'm Kwame Christian, CEO of the American Negotiation Institute, and I have a quick question for you. When was the last time you had a difficult conversation? These conversations happen all the time, and that's exactly why you should listen to Negotiate Anything, the #1 negotiation podcast in the world. We produce episodes every single day to help you lead, persuade, and resolve conflicts both at work and at home. So level up your negotiation skills by making Negotiate Anything part of your daily routine.
Andy Sack and Adam Brotman, welcome back to The Next Big Idea.
Glad to be here.
Thanks so much, Rufus. Couldn't be happier to be here.
You have written a book called AI First, the playbook for a future-proof business and brand. I'm led to believe that the original title for your book was The Holy Shit Moment. Why was that the original title?
You have it half correct, Rufus. The original title of the book was Our AI Journey. And we knew that that was the working title. And then the question became, what do we want to title the book? And I advocated strongly with Adam's support that the title should be The Holy Shit Moment. And if you're asking why did I argue so strongly, it's because our first interview for the book was Sam Altman, and that was November of 23, 1 year after ChatGPT 3.5 had launched. And we went into that meeting, and one of the highlights of the meeting, there were many, was we were asking about marketing and design, and Sam said, I don't know anything very much about marketing and design, but 95% of marketing as we think of it today will be done by AGI within 3 to 5 years. And that was about 18 to 20 months ago. And we left that meeting and went across the street to a park in San Francisco and walked around the block. And we're like, did he just say 95% of marketing jobs will be eliminated within 3 to 5 years? Holy shit. And we had our first holy shit moment with AI in that moment. And I was like, that'd be a really good title for the book. So that's how we got there.
I personally feel like I've had a sequence of holy shit moments in the last few years, right? You remember the first time you saw like DALL-E image generation? That was bananas. And then Google's Notebook LM audio podcast, the first time one heard that was extraordinary. Conversations with GPT's advanced voice mode have blown me away. And then just in the last 2 weeks, Google's VO3 video generation. How many holy shit moments have you had?
I remember my first holy shit moment, but not like the holy shit moment with Sam Altman interview, but I remember when Andy said, Adam, you need to look at this new technology called ChatGPT. I remember my first time using it, which was really the holy shit moment. Then we had this sort of big bang holy shit moment around, oh my God, this thing called AGI is coming, and it's actually not science fiction. It's coming in the next 5+ years, give or take. And then you're right. You rattled off like there seems to be a new one, an aftershock holy shit moment every, month or two nowadays.
There may be some people listening who have not had a holy shit moment. What's your advice for them?
Yeah. So a couple things. One is I think a lot of people either aren't using ChatGPT or Gemini or one of these frontier systems very often or at all. And if they are, I don't want to say they're misusing it because that's not right. There's no such thing, but they're underutilizing it. They're treating it like Google, like, oh, it's a search box and I'm just going to write one sentence and ask it to do something. And if you're not AI literate a little bit, you don't realize that you need to give these systems, the ChatGPT, for example, a little more context. And asking it to help you like a human would, reason, problem solve, understand something, that'll give you a holy shit moment, I promise you, if you haven't had one yet. And then secondly, if you're a little more advanced, try deep research by either Gemini or ChatGPT and watch it effectively turn into a agent and do research and reasoning and give you McKinsey or BCG quality type output in less than 20 minutes for, pennies versus hundreds of thousands of dollars. So the biggest thing is people need to understand this isn't Google. This is an alien synthetic intelligence that can really reason and think and help you. And I think those that haven't had a holy shit moment probably aren't utilizing it to its full potential.
Well, and there's kind of a carrot and a stick in our current situation, isn't there? Because on the one hand, like AI can do extraordinary things, and we'll talk about, some of the extraordinary ways it's impacted our lives individually and our businesses. But there's also this concern that if you're not diving in, there's, a very serious risk of being left behind or outmoded. And so it's a little bit dangerous to have your head in the sand right now. Do you think that's fair? Is that part of the thesis of your book?
The thesis of our book is that this isn't just a mere productivity tool or a small thing that's going to help you. This is a transformational new capability that if you don't adopt it, you're going to have a competitive disadvantage very quickly. And if you do adopt it in the right way, it should give you a competitive advantage. And that's pretty rare these days that some software or tool or technology comes along that you'd say that about it. But because it's so capable of helping you to not just write things and summarize things, but actually make better decisions faster. And if your competitors are making better decisions faster and you're not going to be long for this world. And so it's quickly becoming not just something that gives you an advantage, but something that will be a disadvantage if you don't adopt it.
Here's a data point I just encountered with help from Claude and AI. 2 weeks ago, PricewaterhouseCoopers released a report showing a 4x productivity growth for employees using AI and a 56% wage premium for AI-skilled workers last year, which doubled from a 25% wage premium in 2023. I actually texted this to my children, my teenage boys, this morning because so there's a massive positive incentive for people to dive into AI today. But at the same time, to your point, there's a decent chance you get replaced or outcompeted by the person who is far more effective at employing AI as a force multiplier.
There's been research studies done using old models, meaning like 2-year-old models, that show definitively, statistically significantly, that if you're using ChatGPT or Gemini or the like, you're going to see at least a 25 to 50% lift in productivity and a similar lift in qualitative results. So it's better decisions faster. Your stats back up what the research says. And anecdotally, you're seeing a number of reports coming out now of a lot of companies that have really adopted AI that are doing either quiet layoffs or they're seeing, big productivity lifts. And so you're seeing both quantitative and even anecdotal data to support that this is the real thing, and those that really adopt it can see a big lift in their performance of their company.
It seems pretty clear that this is in the process of changing everything, but it's hard to know how exactly things will change. We recently had Dario Amodei, the CEO of Anthropic, said that 50% of entry-level white-collar jobs will be gone in 5 years, right? This was just a few weeks ago. Meanwhile, a few days ago, Sam Altman said in response that he's not worried about job replacement, that humans will always invent new, sometimes silly work when old roles disappear. Andy, who do you think is right here between Dario and Sam?
It's possible that they're both right, but it's a question of timing. I have to lean a little bit towards the Dario side. We had a follow-up conversation with Bill Gates, who's I think he's chapter 3 of our book. And we had a great interview with him, and we had a follow-up conversation with him, and he said he's never witnessed a technology that has the economic tailwinds that this technology has for adoption.
Wow.
And I think that frames up so clearly and so well what we all intuitively grok and people are starting to put numbers on. So I think Dario's, in the short run, there's no question that labor, particularly white collar workers, which is different than most technology replacement. Most times it's been very manual jobs or blue collar jobs. It's the first time that white collar workers are in the bullseye of the labor displacement. I was doing research on this weekend. it was roughly 20 million jobs over the next 3 years are at risk. And those jobs are administrative, accounting and finance, legal, manufacturing jobs, et cetera, all through the coming AI adoption and automation that comes with it.
What's the advice for people who are kind of sitting on the sidelines right now? Would you guys say the advice is to go all in, to fully immerse yourself? And is this just in work and personal life? What's the counsel for your average listener?
At a minimum, as an organization, so let's stay in the business context, like an organization needs a small group of people that are tasked with understanding and being proficient at what's happening with generative AI. Regardless of how fast you go or don't go as a leader, as an organization, it is malpractice not to have, at a minimum, a small group of people that is dedicated to staying abreast of what's happening, understanding what the different pros and cons are to different tool sets, helping the organization along. Get this group of people together, get them educated. By the way, they might decide to get the whole company, I'll call it educated. I don't mean like, this isn't some mass training program. This is like, start using the technology, stay abreast of what's going on, pick a core tool, get an AI use policy, start thinking from there. That group can then effectively shepherd the organization along. They can decide, is it crawl, walk, or run? And I will say one last thing, which is the CEO of the organization has to get involved. We like to say AI first companies start with AI first leaders. And it doesn't have to mean the CEO becomes an AI expert, but the CEO can't sit back and say, I don't understand this. This is happening too fast. They have to basically show a level of curiosity, humility, and leadership to then, at a minimum, designate that group or that person and say, take us to the promised land.
You guys both have a history of advising some of the leading, CEOs in the world. And you're now advising companies and business leaders about how to transform their organizations with AI. Meanwhile, you're running your own organization and you're, like the rest of us, trying to keep up with this blistering pace of new AI development. So I'm curious to know, to what extent has your relationship with AI tools meaningfully impacted your lives? You're just starting with personal.
I use it for all kinds of planning. So as a travel agent, it is the single best travel agent. And it actually, now that memory is added into ChatGPT, if I'm traveling to a new city, it knows what type of food I like. I can tell it what hotels I prefer, and it will recommend them. And it can deal with distance and geography and tell you, oh, you want to bike to dinner or you want to walk to dinner? I would recommend these 3 restaurants. So in terms of travel agent, it's a phenomenal travel agent.
It's fascinating how the blend of business and personal in my life, and I'm guessing your guys' too, is occurring. Even as a dad, I'm watching my daughter, my 8-year-old daughter, she's now Dad, use AI for this, use AI for that.
Wow.
And she's actually better than me at understanding that if I just talk to the AI about something I'm thinking about, trying to solve it, and I give it context, which is funny as an 8-year-old, she's like, just talk to it. It'll figure it out that, which is why we talk about not prompt engineering the AI, but context engineering or source engineering, which is really a powerful thing to understand, that if you just give it the right context, it's so much better. And the fact that she understands that now where is she asking about? She's saying she's playing Roblox and she gets stuck on something and is like, Dad, I need you to ask the AI this thing, and we do it together. And on advanced voice mode, I'll tee it up and then I'll give her the mic, if you will, and they'll problem solve something. And then I'll use it to understand what's going on with geopolitical events, or really if I want to get some background information on a potential thing that I'm kind of curious about personally. And then of course at work, I'm doing the same thing. This morning, you're going to laugh at how meta this is. I was prepping for this discussion and you had sent over just some general thoughts. Hey guys, I'm going to cover these areas. So I asked, on advanced voice mode, I asked ChatGPT to basically, I copied and pasted the email thread, put it in, and then said, I'm going to drive to this co-working space because there's work going on in my house, and just I want you to quiz me. And it sort of quizzed me. And one of the questions was, how do you use it personally? And I said, this is really weird. I'm talking to you right now, AI, and this is an example of how I use it. And I had this moment where I had this weird out of body moment where I'm like talking to the AI about how I use the AI by talking to it to prep for an AI podcast. It's just gotten to be this overlay that just infuses everything I do now. And I actually think that's the right way to go. I'm not saying, oh, I'm doing something so great. I'm saying if you really want to understand how to get the most out of it, stop acting like it's a one-off thing that you go to and start just integrating it into everything you do to augment your intelligence and your decision-making.
A few of my more colorful examples in my own life are my wife and I tend to fight by text message because the kids can't hear. I have on more than one occasion taken a long thread of disagreements with my almost perfect wife and fed them in and asked GPT or Gemini or Claude to give me counsel. Like, how can I better communicate as a husband here? And I've gotten genuinely good relationship advice. I also, like, on a monthly to quarterly basis, will copy and paste all of my journal entries, which I try to do daily, but I do maybe 3 or 4 times a week, into the different models and get advice on, hey, who is this guy? Is he actually making progress? And give him some candid, tough love. Like, and I did that as recently as this morning. And I got back, Rufus, it's time to channel your self-awareness into unwavering, disciplined action. Your journal's a powerful tool. Now let it be a record of sustained transformation, not just recurring resolutions. In other words, I keep making the same freaking resolutions. And then it gave me like 1 through 6. These are the changes to make. Genuinely like functioning as a life coach. But the challenge I find in these cases is you have to give it the right input and collecting the right information. Like the fact that I have, 4 years of a journal that I can input enables me to get this life coach experience.
Just to build on that, that's, I think, a key like nugget of something for people to understand, which is that you have to just give it more context. But when you do give it more context, and then you ask it to not only answer you back, but tell you its reasoning or tell you why it answered back, that's when you go, whoa. I just thought about this weekend because I was watching this movie called Lucy with Scarlett Johansson and Morgan Freeman, where it's a science fiction movie about what happens if the humans use more of their brain, and we apparently don't use even close to most of our brain power.
It is estimated most human beings only use 10% of their brain's capacity. Imagine if we could access 100%. Interesting things begin to happen. Yes?
Professor Norman, my name's Lucy. I just read all your research on the human brain. It's a little rudimentary, but you're on the right track.
And it makes me wonder if, as a species, if we've become used to just operating in heuristics all the time, and that we have all these rules of thumb that, like, we talk to each other in shorthand, we text each other in shorthand, and yet if you give the AI this ability, give it more context, and then let it like almost become that part of your brain that you're not fully using. It doesn't mean that like it's always going to shock you with like pearls of wisdom, but I think that we all tend to forget that we're going too fast and we're processing too much. And if you give the AI the right context and ask it to give you a more fulsome answer, you'd be surprised at like how quickly, like in a matter of seconds, it can just give you this really well thought out thing that, whether it's helping my daughter at Roblox or Andy giving step-by-step instructions of how to reprogram his outdoor lighting or whatever he's doing. But if you're talking about like in any context, like it can be sophisticated negotiations or strategy, it can flex to all that stuff. And you just got to like give it the context, give it the source, and don't be afraid to just give it the transcript, so to speak. And it can do wonders.
My visceral gut feeling is that in 3 to 5 years, a large portion of really high achieving people are going to be using always on voice and or video that's likely to come in the form of augmented reality glasses that we know are in production, right, from all the major players right now. Do you guys think this is true, that we're likely moving towards always on recording? And do you think we'll adapt to that?
I've thought a lot about this. Just to provide the audience with context, I still don't have location turned on my phone, and I don't share my location with anyone, period. So if I suddenly disappeared, no one would be able to find me. I contrast that with my daughter. She shared her location with about 150 people. And so when she goes to a new city, she goes to LA, she can see which of her friends are in LA at the same time, and she uses that as sort of a social network. I think about Ring cameras a lot. I didn't really give the people on my street when I go for a walk, I didn't give them permission to photograph me when I walk by them. And yet I know I'm being recorded all the time. I generally think that with AI and the coming wave of hardware, my ability to not give up my location, I basically have lost that ability. These always on devices are going to be on, whether I agree to it or not. My friend Rufus will have it on and it will recognize my voice. It'll know that it's Andy talking and it's going to be recorded all the time. Do I think our society is ready for the implications of that? Not at all.
I want you to know, Andy, I will always ask your permission before recording your voice.
If you remember to, right? I think it's going to just be recorded everywhere.
My guess is there'll be an inflection point in the next 3 to 5 years where it just becomes so common that people are just like, okay, our reality is being recorded. There's clearly a loss of privacy there, but there's also a gain. I mean, because what I've found is the AI counsel and advice I get, and business advice, is powerful and effective and really helps accelerate our business in proportion to the inputs, how much detail I'm able to provide about what's happening in the business. And actually recording all of our internal conversations as a team results in dramatically better advice and strategy. What do you think, Adam?
Let's just say with work conversations. So like having automatic note takers and meeting transcripts always happening, that unstructured data is very, very valuable and in ways that you can, I think, are even only barely being understood. For our book, one of our case studies was with a CEO named Matt Britton, who's the CEO and founder of a company called Suzy. When we talked to him, Andy and I sat down and we explained what we were working on. And we said, we hear you're kind of an AI first CEO. And can you tell us more about like what you did? And what he said, the first thing he said, he goes, I realized my company was sitting on a treasure trove of data. And I want to use this data to help me improve my sales and account management effectiveness and save costs at the same time. And he started telling us the story. And at first I was confused because he was talking about transcripts of calls that he uses because I think the largest percentage of his overhead was sales and account managers that were always doing phone calls with their B2B customers and potential customers. And they were being recorded by a sales platform called Gong, I think is what it's called. And he has all those transcripts. And he immediately realized, I could be feeding those transcripts into ChatGPT automatically. And it's a great case study because he said, by the way, that he asked his tech team and his legal team to help him. And when they were both pushing back against him saying, we shouldn't be using AI for this reason or that reason, he said, forget it, I'll just do it myself. And he used ChatGPT to teach him how to use Zapier as a non-technical CEO to basically create his own application for taking the ChatGPT API, these transcripts from Gong, and wiring together a auto transcript reading alert system that would tell him when calls were going well, when they were not going well, when there was a propensity to churn or a need to follow up. And he was describing all this, but the thing that I was struck by was how he was talking about data. And we're all used to thinking about data in terms of databases of structured data. My POS data, my ERP data. But there's tons of data that you don't need to go clean up. In fact, you don't even want to clean it up. You just want to feed it into the AI. And I think meeting transcripts, sales transcripts, professional transcripts, they're just gold about giving that context to do the source engineering that we talked about being a best practice. So this is something that every business leader could just turn on now in terms of their thinking about how to think about meeting transcripts. They're not there to summarized for after meeting action items only. I know that's how everyone thinks about them. They're actually there to basically feed into this AI first mentality that we're discussing.
There are a number of really interesting case studies in your book. Another one that really engaged me was the case study of Moderna. And as we know, Moderna is a pharmaceutical company that created one of the most effective COVID vaccines using machine learning, right? I mean, they're already on the cutting edge of this technology, so it's not surprising that they have been really proactive and on the cutting edge of implementing AI internally. What can we learn from Moderna's approach?
We hold up Moderna as really a case study of really one of the leading AI first companies. Your point about the CEO and the fact that they were using machine learning in the field of biology as core to their product, it makes sense that the CEO was naturally going to be an AI first leader, and he was naturally going to say, oh, just like we're using AI to disrupt and revolutionize drug discovery and drug making, let's use AI as part of our operations and our culture. And so he went out and actually recruited Bryce Chalamel from Google. Bryce is a fascinating Frenchman who I think co-authored a book or two and was at Google doing AI transformation work when he got recruited to basically run digital transformation for Moderna.
If you are, as we are, in the perspective that AI is a utility, that everyone should have it as they have electricity, as they have laptops, or as they have the internet, then they are going to start generating AI products.
One of the things that he did is he held a prompt contest, I think for the whole organization, asking people to provide examples of how they actually prompt AI to be more effective in their roles. This resulted in his being able to establish a whole team, a whole AI leadership team internally. That was one of the things that stuck in my head.
Yeah, they held a promptathon, which was really creative for two reasons. One is it was using game mechanics or gamification to get the whole company involved and excited. And one of the prizes was all expense paid for the winners to go out to the West Coast and meet with like Sam Altman and Bill Gates and Reid Hoffman and some of the leaders in AI, which was very exciting to this company, which makes sense. So they gamified it, they made it fun, but they focused on the prompt, not the answer, which is very, if you get to learn to know Bryce Chalamel, who we have a lot of respect for, he was trying to make the point that it's about being curious and about trying things and about seeing what this could do to help, as opposed to thinking about like, oh, this solves something right now. So I thought that was a very progressive and thoughtful way to do the contest around the prompt. And they got a lot, I think they got 80% of the company, which was not small. Like thousands of people participated and enjoyed it. And it was kicked off by a video from the CEO and like Andy was talking about. So you ended up having like all these best practices that we talk about held up in this one example of the promptathon.
And I love Bryce's advice for executives, which is he said, don't oversell Gen AI. And number two, believe in your people. Can you expand on that?
The AI is not a silver bullet to answering all your questions correctly the first time and changing your life. It's about augmenting your brain and about being curious and expansive and understanding that it's a co-pilot. It's an augmentation tool. It's a force multiplier for you. And so he really wants people to think inwardly about how can I be better by using the AI versus how is AI going to replace me or how is AI just going to give me the answer. That gets to believe in your people. Your people are great, he was saying. Like you've hired them for a reason. Imagine what would happen if you could amplify their capabilities. And that's how you should look at this tool. Andy and I talk about the Iron Man suit analogy over and over. And I can't think of a better analogy than that because it's still you doing the driving. You're still the human in the loop. And you're still the person that knows more than anybody about what it takes for your company to succeed. So believe in your people, give them the tool to amplify themselves. And don't think this is a silver bullet. Think of this as something that's just going to compound and make you better. And I thought all of those lessons were great from Bryce.
I'll add to that. I think that the advice of don't oversell AI is actually a profound piece of advice, because what he's saying is don't raise the expectation level on AI being all things to all people. It's an enabler of human intelligence and activity. And if you keep the expectation low, I mean, AI, like human beings, are flawed. And so if you keep your expectations low, people can surprise you and AI can surprise you, and you'll be surprised. Whereas if you hold the bar so high that either a person or AI are going to solve all your problems, guess what? You're going to be let down.
That's a great segue to some of the limitations of AI in the workplace. We are seeing in some of the data some real downsides. Chief among them, like there appear to be some real psychological costs to outsourcing too much to AI. There were a series of studies with 3,500 participants that showed that though AI really meaningfully improves quality and efficiency of tasks, as we've been discussing, it results often in a decrease in intrinsic motivation.
It's hard for me when I hear that. It's hard, that sounds so academic to me. That, and I'm not being critical of your point. I'm just saying, like, it's hard for me to understand, like, what does that even mean? Like they're more bored or they're less motivated. Here's the thing I'd say in all seriousness, this is a really wild new tool for all of us in the workplace, not just like consultants and CEOs, but everybody. And there's a change curve that all of us are going to have to go through as we start using it. So I don't know about studies that talk about boredom percentages and stuff like that. There was a study recently that came out over the weekend that was quite controversial, actually, about studying students' brains in college. One set of students were allowed to use the AI, ChatGPT, to like give it the answer to the test question. And another, they weren't allowed to use it to give the answer, but it was forced to be in tutor mode so they could sort of learn the thing. And they studied the brains of the kids, and they said, oh, well, the ones that used it to just give the answer to the test, it was not good. They weren't using their brain. And I was like,
yeah,
well, I don't understand why you needed to like do a study for that, right? And I'm not being crass about or dismissing that there are going to be all sorts of issues in the workplace and in education, but this is a decision-making, learning, augmentation tool that is going to take everybody a while to sort of like go through. I mean, this is separate from the ramifications to like job loss and Terminator stuff happening and, unethical things and scams. Like there's a lot of real serious things going on with this technology, both good and bad. I think like boredom and, motivation are like low on my list of things I'm worried about. I have plenty of worries about this technology. That those two are not top of my list.
One thing that this whole question brings up is I do think education has to change. What is the role of writing, right? Like it used to be that in college and in high school, you were taught to write. I mean, I'm reminded when I went to school, just to date me, I had to learn cursive handwriting. And eventually cursive went away. Like, I don't think people, with the computer, cursive writing went away. Writing in general is at risk of going away. I mean, I think all college papers now are being written by ChatGPT. And so there was a debate that the skill of writing was a really important skill, and how could it be taught now that ChatGPT was out? And one of my son's friends was arguing that English teachers needed to require handwritten papers during class so that students were forced to still learn the skill of writing. And
yeah.
I actually think that person might be right. I actually think that the skill of writing is an important skill it's different than just consuming and reading. That actual writing is a different skill, and that should continue to be taught. But it's a really good question.
We had Saul Khan on the show, and I know you all interviewed Saul Khan for the book. What I understood from Saul is, look, writing is no longer a direct artifact of somebody's brain. This is the beginning of a new age within which when you receive a piece of writing, it's no longer evidence of how somebody thinks. That direct human communication, which is, by the way, what we did before we had writing, and that back in the Socratic dialogue days, students can make their case in class verbally. Sure, they can write things down in cursive or italics or whatever format they like, but we're all engaged in the business of reasoning out loud, thinking things through, persuading people, incorporating other people's ideas. That dialogue, that verbal dialogue, should maybe go back to the center of the educational process. But I mean, clearly education needs to change.
A couple thoughts. One is that I think for starters, there needs to be an education of these systems and how they work and how to incorporate them into getting good output. And the question, though, about the handwritten tests and handwritten writing, it's a really interesting paradox or conundrum, because all these studies show that having to write down your thoughts without assistance is supposed to be very, very helpful to developing your brain and learning how to piece together thoughts. And so I'm a little worried about that going away. That needs to be preserved on some level. And at the same time, we're going to become much more managers of these systems. And Rufus, like you said, we have to be good at persuading and convincing and teeing up cases to be made for things. And I think that that's going to become a really important skill that's different than writing. And I'm not sure what's going to happen. I'm torn on this one. I definitely think either way, though, that just like businesses, the education system has to embrace that this is happening and then figure out a way to like integrate it in and prepare students for a world where AI augmentation is going to be table stakes and commonplace, and get them good at it. And I don't know exactly how they balance that sort of like teaching them how to write, teaching them how to think on their own. I think they have to do that for sure, but I'm not quite sure where that line is anymore.
Today's episode is brought to you by Intuit Enterprise Suite.
I'm Sandy Edwards. I'm the Director of Product for our mid-market offerings at Intuit.
Sandy spoke to LinkedIn about the ways Enterprise Suite can help businesses as they grow.
Growth can happen literally overnight. And really for us, as we built Intuit Enterprise Suite, we wanted to make sure that we are powering prosperity for these growing businesses, from small business all the way up through mid-market.
Sandy says automation and multi-entity reporting are vital to helping businesses as they scale.
We really focused on automation to make sure that we could automate some of these business processes for them, like the multi-entity reporting or multi-dimensional reporting and accounting. We really make sure that we focus on the complete platform, a virtual one-stop shop for your business needs.
As Sandy mentions, Intuit Enterprise Suite is a powerful tool for businesses of all sizes, but she also sees it as the next step in delivering on Intuit's mission.
So at Intuit, our mission is powering prosperity around the world. And through that, we really focused on solving the key customer problems that were facing these mid-market businesses and holding them back from growth. And that really translated into making sure that everything that we built into the platform is focused on helping them drive revenue, drive profitability, drive customer growth, or hire and retain the top talent.
That was Sandy Edwards of Intuit. Thanks, Sandy. Now back to the show.
Hey, I'm Michael Kovnat, host of The Next Big Idea Daily. The show is a masterclass in better living from some of the smartest writers around. Every morning, Monday through Friday, we'll serve up a quick 10-minute lesson on how to strengthen your relationships, supercharge your creativity, boost your productivity, and more. Follow The Next Big Idea Daily wherever you get your podcasts.
There's a wonderful moment towards the end of your book where you say, you've done all this research about how we can radically transform organizations using AI. And then you talk with Ethan Mollick, who, of course, is at Wharton and has become a leading expert on the topic of the use of AI for business. And you give him your transcript and he says, you aren't thinking radically enough, right? He says, this book, which you thought at the time was pretty radical, was inadequately radical. What did he mean by that?
We were not pushing executives at companies far enough along, and that given the pace of innovation of the large language models and the step function nature of the large language models, that our playbook was too tailored to the current state and was not thinking about what was going to come in 6 months or 6 months after that.
I think among Ethan Mollick's comments were, if you're not building agents internally, AI agents, you're in trouble. And you need to be building a replacement for your entire organization effectively in an AI lab. You should be testing if you can automate everything that your organization does. And when in doubt, be more bold and aggressive with what you ask AI to do, right? I mean, these are among his more sort of radical recommendations. And would you agree with that?
I mean, I think that's literally true what you just said, although there's a little bit of nuance in terms of what does that mean? And I think that's also what he's pushing on, which is if you imagine a world where that's even possible, if you imagine that world, what do you do with that? Doesn't mean, by the way, that you decide to replace everybody. For example, there might be certain jobs that there's trust, or like, I don't want to assign an AI to do critical sales or account management or customer support because I want the human touch, or I don't want an AI handling certain creative tasks or something. So you could decide that you feel like a human is going to be more valued or more whatever. But the truth is, a lot of the actual tasks of the job to be done, if it can be done by an AI, what Professor Mollick was pushing on is, in that world, how do you think about your org design? How do you think about your cost structure? Where do you draw that line? And he was right to push us. He was right that we need to get these CEOs that we're talking to uncomfortable, and they should be doing this. They should be planning for this right now. We have to have the courage to really grab our clients by the lapel or whatever you call it and just say, hey, you're going to have to start making these plans and at least experimenting now in a way that's going to feel very science fiction and uncomfortable to you.
When we started this conversation of this podcast episode, we started talking about how many people have really not had the aha moments. What advice do we have for them? And are they at risk of missing out? I liken it to a tsunami. This is the first technology that really risks running over the entire executive team. And when people go, holy shit, I mean, it is a holy shit moment. And it's a tsunami of technology and capabilities. And if you don't start the learning process now, you are absolutely going to be left behind, period.
But I think also looking at the glass half full version of the picture, for those of us who are entrepreneurs and have side hustles and want to write books and want to do more than we're capable of doing. I mean, I'm someone who, as Andy knows, having known me for many decades, always has 17 things I would like to be doing, and I'm usually capable of actually executing 2 or 3 of them. So for me, this is incredibly exciting, right? I've got like multiple books I would like to write. I've got, we have a small team at the Next Big Idea Club, and we have an enormous amount we want to do. And we're already seeing some of the empowerment of AI to do those things more quickly and more effectively. Hopefully, we're all experiencing in our lives the promise of the ability to simply be more effectual and do more of the things, the kind of creative work that we most enjoy.
I'm excited for sure about what is going to allow us to do these amazing things. But it's not just because all of a sudden we have this AI button, easy button that we can push. It's a combination of our life experience and our relationships and our subject matter expertise that we had built up prior to Gen AI, that we now, I think, Gen AI becomes this sort of missing piece of the puzzle that allows us to kind of put it together.
And at this moment in the evolution of AI, who are the winners and who are the losers? There's a lot of studies recently about how people at different levels of organizations are being affected. Is this more empowering for junior members of teams, senior members of teams, leadership? How do you think about who wins and loses?
It's much easier to identify who the losers are, and the losers are the ones that don't engage. There's a 50 to 60% premium in pay for individual contributors, executives with AI skills. It's clear that AI skills are in demand in the market. and you're more likely to get a job even though there are fewer jobs. I think the studies show that AI helps the average to below average employee, gives them more of a lift than the high achiever, but it helps both. It is a mech suit or an Iron Man suit, an augmentation suit for all employees at all levels. Adam and I use it as a co-founder. I don't know at what level of the stack we are, but we've been executives our entire career. And so I find it very useful in my day-to-day.
So AI is still the co-founder, not the CEO.
I think there will be companies where AI could be a better CEO. What it takes to be a CEO in the AI era, the skills that it takes are very different than the skills from 5 years ago. There's a greater amount of humility. There's a recognition that this AI is an alien intelligence that's smarter than all of us. And you're working in collaboration with the AI, and the AI is almost giving the chairman or CEO role.
It's almost like we're taught, and I'm not being critical of the question because it's a good question about who are the winners, who are the losers, but it almost misses what I think is an important point, which is that assumes that we're going to do business and work the same way. And actually, I think that the nature of how things get done is going to change in such a way that there still will be winners and losers, but I don't think it's going to be like, oh, this group are going to be losers. I mean, I think Andy answered it well, which is like, instead of answering like, oh, it's researchers are going to be losers or whatever, like he said it's people who don't engage, because there was a quote, the CEO of Goldman Sachs, I believe, was quoted recently saying,
we compete to take a company public. One of the things we do is we basically write an S1, the filing document, and go show them, how much thought we've put into doing that. If you go back, we were doing this, 10 years ago, it would take a team of 5 or 6 people, including a very senior person, 2 weeks, really working a significant portion of every day to really put that together and make it be as excellent and professional as you wanted it to be, to go into a founder of a company and say, let me show you this. Today now, you can basically have something that's 95% of the way there in a few minutes.
Okay, does that mean that if you're one of those people that works on writing up the filing documents for an IPO at an investment bank, your job's going to be eliminated and you're going to be one of the losers? Maybe, but the truth is, if you're one of those people that knows how to use AI and you're one of the people that are actually writing the prompt to make sure it can be done in 95% quickly, and now you're one of the people that can work on 5 of those, and by the way, can actually add to your responsibilities because you just became so much more productive, maybe you're a winner. So I don't think it's about like individual people, individual job categories, as much as it is going to be just the nature of work's going to shift. And there's going to be those that are comfortable managing these systems. When I've said that in the past, people have said, what if I'm not good at management? Or what if I'm not good at being an entrepreneur? Or what if I'm not a very creative person? That's a legit issue. Like, so that could be a problem. And I don't have a good answer for it, but I do feel like the nature of work is going to shift much more to like managing systems, all the way to the point where what Andy said is true. Is there going to be an AI CEO? Yeah, there will be at some point. But somebody's going to manage that AI CEO. So that means the nature of a board or an investor might change as well.
That's
so
right.
It really just shifts. You have to just think of it as not like, oh, certain things are staying static and other things are going to like change and get eliminated. I think it's just going to be like a tectonic shift that's going to just change across the landscape, how we think about work and how we think about output. And it's going to be rough, I think, in some cases, but it's not going to be a simple thing to answer who wins, who loses.
Well, this brings us back to the quote that we shared at the top of the show from Dario Amodei of Anthropic, saying 5 years from now, he predicted that 50% of entry-level work would be replaced by AI. Specifically entry-level work, right, was his comment. Now, of course, Jensen Huang and Sam Altman and others disagree with that assertion. But it does seem plausible that the entry-level jobs will be easier to replace. And we see this, I think Andy Jassy at Amazon recently made a comment about them downscaling some teams and the importance of being scrappy. Andy, you have a son who just graduated from college. I've got a few teenagers. what should be our advice to them?
I think that the domains, I have 3 pieces of advice. Number one, I think studying the hardcore sciences, in particular physics, applied math, is still relevant. Number two, I think focusing on being adaptive and creative as a skill is an important skill to foster. And 3, invest, use AI, like get in there, be one of the people that knows how to use it, to create with it, because I think that understanding both its limitations and how to create things all the way to completion is still a real skill.
What do you two think we can expect going forward from GPT-5, 6, the latest versions of Claude and Gemini, and beyond? What do you think things are going to look like 1, 2, 3 years from now?
When we started the book, going back to that first interview with Sam, and he was talking about AGI 3 to 5 years out, and that was 18 months ago. I think that when we wrote the epilogue just recently, we basically both agreed that we're in the zone of AGI. We're not there yet, but we're in the zone of it. And what does that mean? That means a lot of the things that he was starting to talk about, this whole notion of agents, deep research is really something that most people have not utilized yet. If you haven't utilized it, I really encourage you to go do a deep research report, either with ChatGPT or Gemini, because it's a mind-blowing experience. It really is. So I think we're in the zone of that AGI. What do I expect from 5? More of the same, more aha moments that blow my mind. When VO3 came out, the videos that are being put up online are mind-blowing. I've been playing with it just this weekend to try and I'm creating an AI first video, and I'm having fun doing it. I'm creating a little 1-minute shtick. When it's complete, I'll send it to you. And I got to the 30-yard line of the end zone, but getting the ball into the end zone and getting a finished product that meets my quality levels I got a video, but it's not at the level that I want it to be at yet.
Well, this is something that, Andy, you and I were both entrepreneurs back in the 90s in the early advent of the web. And I think something that we learned then was that, there are real dividends that are paid when you're early on adoption of new technologies, right? That there's advantages to be early. And Adam, when you were, running digital transformation at Starbucks, you were early on the execution of apps, for retail in a way that was very powerful and transformative. So we've all seen this. And my muscle memory from those experiences decades ago is when you see someone, when you have a holy shit moment, it means you should experiment, play, and act. So an example of that VO3 just out in the last few weeks from Google, incredible, videos you can generate just with words and prompts. My 17-year-old son started a series of comical Bigfoot videos on TikTok. And in 6 days, he has over 40,000 followers, 5 million views.
Your son did that?
Yeah. My 17-year-old son.
We might want to hire your son, by the way.
Yes,
so
no.
Case in point about diving into the skills. I might need help.
Exactly. You and me both. Well, as we think about what's kind of left for humans, one can imagine that in some years to come, there'll be less for us to do. I'm curious to know what humans are good for from your perspectives.
One thing, and Sam Altman mentioned this in his latest blog post about the gentle singularity, is that humans still care about what other humans do. They don't care as much about what other machines do in terms of they're not as emotionally as attached to something that's made by a machine as they are with other humans. And that's not true for generically across every single thing. But the truth is, in general, we are much more interested in watching humans perform art and perform sports and compete and have fun and play games and we, how do I put this? We care more if something's made by a human than if it's not made by a human. I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. Not in our lifetimes, I don't think. So no matter what AIs can do, I think that we as humans care more about what other humans make and do. So that's going to pervade. And so there might be a world that's weird where there's like AI personalities and AI employees and AI influencers and AI creators, AI CEOs. And so we're going to have to live in a world where those things happen. But I don't think it changes that we as humans care more about other human output and other human activities. And I think as a result of that, there's going to be tons for us to do and tons of relevance. And it's not going to, I'm not trying to be too glass half full, but I just think that that's true.
And I like to think that there's an opportunity for us to become ever more idiosyncratically ourselves.
You and me both.
That's a good point to end on.
All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for your time today. What a fascinating conversation.
Rufus, thank you.
Thanks, Rufus.
Andy Sack and Adam Brotman are the founders of Forum 3 and the authors of AI First. What's the subtitle again?
The playbook for a future-proof business and brand. You're doing great. Just keep going and you'll nail it.
You can learn more about their business and pick up a copy of their book by following the link in the episode notes. If you'd like to see my teenage son Gray's Bigfoot video series, which now have more than 49,000 followers about 9 days after he launched it, search for Bigfoot Bandits, that's with a Z at the end, on TikTok. We are currently in negotiations with his agent to retain him as a social media consultant. Wish us luck. Today's episode was produced and edited by Caleb Bissinger. Sound design by Mike Toda. This is the final episode we're making as part of the LinkedIn Podcast Network. Jesse, Mike, Ryan, Sarah, Kamen, it's been a great ride. Now, if you're listening to this and thinking, oh no, is this the end of the show? Rest assured, it is not. We're not going anywhere. We've got a bunch of great interviews lined up, but we are in a period of transition. So if this show has meant something to you over the years, if it's inspired you, if you've learned things, if it's changed, even in small ways, how you see the world, now would be a great moment to show us your support by joining the Next Big Idea Club. You can learn more at our website, nextbigideaclub.com. Alrighty, I'm Rufus Griscom. See you next week. Did I miss anything?
No, you nailed it. That was a solid wrap up. It's always good to end on a note that encourages listeners to stay engaged and keep coming back for more. Great job.